All right. Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see you all. And we are doing, this is our pricing week, and Union Kitchen is with us. They have an awesome presentation that really dives into different pricing strategies and all sorts of good stuff, and really gets into the food industry and specific knowledge there. So I think you're going to love that. It's interactive. But first, I just wanted to say that that I've had lots of conversations with you all this week through email or through phone calls. And okay, a few things actually. So the first is that this is normally a 15-week program. We've condensed it down to 12 weeks for you guys. Sense. So if you're feeling that, that's what's going on. We understand. We thought that this might be better for people, so it didn't get into your growing season, but I know that it's actually ended up being a lot really quickly. And I know everyone has a life outside of farm to food, so I appreciate that. And I just wanted to say that at this point, if you guys need to just ignore the assignment deadlines, just keep chipping away at it as you can, make progress. I would say work with the marketing people because you want to give them plenty of time to do what they want to do. So, start having those conversations. And with that, with the marketing people, be really honest up front, because if you don't like something up front, it is so much easier to change it in the beginning. So find your voice, be an advocate for yourself. And it's okay to not like something. They do a phenomenal job, so I don't think that's going to be the case. But if you maybe a little bit darker of a green than the green they picked, tell them up front. So with part of this kind of going at your own pace, I talked to Kevin this week with the one-on-ones, and he's willing to extend his availability out some because I told him everyone is very overwhelmed right now and has a lot going on. So he can do that into the beginning of the summer. So don't feel stressed on that one. And I think Peter's around all the time, quite frankly. I mean, it's his job to be at the library and to help people. So I think you don't have to feel stressed about that one. Yes, Debbie.
Do we only get one time with Kevin?
I think you get two, but I know but I'm not sure everyone's going to utilize him. So if you want more time, just let us know and we can see what it's looking like. So, but I also just want to say that everyone I'm pretty sure almost all of you have some big things going on in your life outside of this right now. And I really want this to be a very joyous place to gather and not stressful for you. And so, and also just to give support and grace to each other. So with that, my voice is not quite right yet from my procedure, so I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to pass it over to Union Kitchen, and they are going to do the amazing thing that they do. And Salima, would you also mind doing a quick 5-minute preview of what's coming next week with the pitching? And you guys don't have to do the pitching assignment yet, which is making that sell sheet if you're not ready, but just, yeah, Salima, just if you could give them just a tiny preview, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, all yours.
All right, if you could just make me host, that's the last thing I'd ask you to do. Thank you. Perfect. All right, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
So hello everyone, my name is Salima and I'm with Union Kitchen, and today I will be instructing the session on pricing. So understanding your pricing is very important and key to building a successful food business, and it importantly ensures that your company is on a steady path to profitability. So we'll jump in on all of that today. All right. So before we jump into today's session, like we did a couple of weeks ago, I'd love for you all to drop in the chat your name, your business, and the product that you're currently working on. Hi, Alice. Nice. Nice. Ooh, Korean barbecue beef jerky. That sounds really good. Cool. Well, feel free to drop that in the chat as we proceed. And I'll be popping in the chat to take a look. Ooh. All right. So now that you've established your mission and core values, working on finalizing your recipe, and maybe made some progress on your packaging designs or completed your packaging designs, we'll focus on pricing your product today. All right. So I'll make this session a little bit interactive and call on some folks. So Debbie, could you please read us the agenda for today?
Product business module, impulse, weekly and frequent, margin versus markup, pricing strategies, and pricing workbook example.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
All right. Ooh. So let's dive into pricing and our product business models. All right, so the CPG business model broadly relies on high sales volume, extensive distribution, and low cost of goods. So within that, there are three main product business models that we'll cover today, and we'll jump into that right now. So the impulse product business model is typically the single unit grab and go type of product that you would envision buying on a daily basis. So how I like to think about this is whenever I go on a road trip and I'm stopping at like a local convenience store, what are the things that I'm grabbing? And what I grab is like a bag of chips, a pack of M&Ms, a bottle of soda. Usually things that I can consume in one sitting would fall under that impulse category. And then the weekly product business model is the slightly larger format products or the multi-pack products. So these products are usually ones that we put on our grocery list on that weekly or bi-weekly basis. So think of like a pack of granola bars or like a carton of milk that would fall under this product business model. And then finally, the infrequent product business model is usually the family size or larger format of products. So these products typically are not used often and are purchased infrequently on an as needed basis. So under this product business model, you can think of condiments or spice blends. And these products are usually purchased every couple of months. So thinking back to like condiments, a bottle of ketchup, we wouldn't really necessarily purchase that on like a daily or weekly basis. We would usually purchase that on an as needed basis, right? So understanding your product business model will directly impact how you price your product. And the reason that we're covering this today is because we first have to figure out what business model our products fall under. So then we can frame our mind around what the pricing strategy is going to look like, right? Any questions up until now?
Can you be part of more than one of those groups? Like, could you be two of them?
Yeah, good question. You could fall in between one or the other. You don't necessarily have to be like geared towards like the impulse or the weekly. So that's totally fine. Awesome. So now we'll watch a quick video that'll go into more detail of each of the product business models and hopefully fill in any gaps.
Have you ever wondered which product business model is right for you and your food business? In today's video, we will discuss the different CPG business models and explain how it will affect the size, price, and use case of your products. Products largely fall into three purchase categories: impulse, weekly, and infrequent. The impulse purchase business model relies on two things: high volume and cheap cost of goods, or inexpensive to make, to be successful. This business model scales the fastest of the three business models. The types of products that fall into this category are purchases that your consumer will buy daily, like a bag of chips or a bottle of Coke. These products are typically smaller, grab-and-go size. The weekly purchase business model similarly relies on high sales volume to be successful. While the volume of a weekly purchase is not as high as daily purchase orders, products in this category are still able to leverage economies of scale to grow in profitability. Products that fall into this category rely on more distribution points than the impulse category to account for the slightly slower movement. Cartons of Oatly milk or Veggie Confetti's pickled veggies fall into this category. These products are larger in size. The infrequent purchase business model is the hardest to scale. These products are purchased on an as-need basis. To account for the slower volume, products in this category need to be priced higher to achieve higher margins per unit. Additionally, this category relies on large product lines and lots of distribution points to be successful. McCormick's large line of spices or luxury lines of condiments fall into this category.
Awesome. So now I would like you all to drop in the chat which business model you think your product will fall into. And like Jocelyn mentioned previously, it can fall into more than one. Impulse, weekly, I'm seeing infrequent. Weekly or infrequent. Nice. Impulse and weekly. Great. So we're seeing a lot of impulse and weekly. Awesome.
Have you?
All right. So just to recap, the impulse purchase business model, the two main considerations that you want to take into account are that first, it's at a lower price point. So typically we see this product under $5, and then you'll have lower per unit margins to achieve that profitability compared to other models, right? So this means because you're pricing your product lower, you're going to make less on every product you sell. But to make up for that, you'll be selling at a much larger volume that you'll end up making the same amount of money coming in. So this business model typically scales the fastest of the three business models. And then the weekly purchase business model is at the middle price point, so typically under $10. These products will have a middle per unit margin to achieve that profitability compared to other models. So products that fall into this category rely more on distribution points than the impulse category to account for the slower movement on the shelves. So the margins for these products have to be slightly higher to make up for that, right? So like we were talking about earlier, we can think of cartons of milk that would fall into this category. So these products that would fall into this category will be slightly larger than the impulse. And then finally, we have the infrequent. So to recap on this one, This purchase business model is products that are purchased on an as needed basis, right? So to account for the slower volume, products in this category need to be priced higher to achieve those higher margins per unit. And then additionally, this category relies on large product lines and lots of distribution points to be successful, right? So you can think of spice blends that would fall under this category, or lines of condiments seen in this example. And like I mentioned earlier, these are just consumed at a slower rate, so they're purchased on an as needed basis. Any questions about the product business models we've discussed so far?
Can we aim the impulse and infrequent seem almost contradictory, because impulse, like you said, is lower margins and infrequent is higher margins?
Yep.
Is it ever possible, or is it really a bad idea to aim for both of those?
It really depends. So if you're selling, if you're selling different product sizes, like the more like grab and go of your product would fall under the impulse category. And then if you have a larger format of that same product, it would fall under that infrequent category, right? Because they would be taking longer to consume that product.
I mean, are there any examples you can think of on the market that might fall into both of those categories?
So yeah, something to think about would be like a single pack of granola or a single bar of granola that you would envision seeing at like a convenience store, right? And then let's say we're going to like a bigger box store, we would see that same granola bar, but it's in like a larger formatted pack. So it comes with like a pack of 6 granola bars, right? Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, thank you.
No worries. All right, so the next topic we'll cover is margins versus markup. And then Jocelyn, do you want to read this slide for us?
The final piece for your pricing strategy is understanding the difference between margins and markup.
Thank you. So we'll watch a quick video that overviews the difference between margins and markup.
Starting a food business comes with many variables and moving parts. Will consumers want the products? Do they like the packaging? Is the pricing right? One thing that shouldn't be variable is understanding what someone means when they use the terms markup and margins. In this video, we break down margins and markups, how to calculate each, and the difference between the two. First things first. What exactly is the difference between margins and markups? Margins, also known as gross margins, are the percentage difference between the sale price and the cost of making the product, or the percentage of how much the product sells for above the actual cost of the product itself. Markup, meanwhile, shows how much more your selling price is than the amount the item costs you. In a nutshell, it's different math describing different results. In packaged food, you want to focus on your margins. Retailers and distributors operate based on expected margins. It will also help you understand if your pricing and variable costs are structured in a way where your business can be successful. A low margin means your product is either priced too low or your variable costs are too high. To calculate your margin, take your gross profit and subtract your Cogs. Then find the percentage of the revenue, and that is gross margin. Here's an example. Let's say you sell cupcakes for $4 each. The ingredients, labor, and packaging costs you $1.50. First, find your gross profit, or the difference between the revenue, $4, and the cost. So $1.50 times $4 minus $1.50 equals $2.50 gross profit. Find the margin, divide gross profit by the revenue. That would be $2.50 divided by 4, which gives you 0.63 margin. To make the margin a percentage, multiply the result by 100. So 0.63 times 100 equals 63% margin. Similarly to a margin, you first find your gross profit by subtracting COGS from revenue. Here is an example. Using the same cupcake example from above, you sell each cupcake for $4. The COGS are $1.50. First, find the gross profit. You do this by subtracting $4 by $1.50, which gives you $2.50 gross profit. To write the markup as a percentage, divide the gross profit by the COGS. So $2.50 divided by $1.50 gives you 1.67 markup. To make the markup a percentage, multiply the result by 100. So 1.67 times 100 equals 167% markup. The markup is 167%. That means you sold the cupcakes for 167% more than the amount you paid for it. Sometimes it's necessary to convert the markup to a margin or vice versa. Luckily, the math is not too difficult. To find the margin from a markup, use this formula. Margin equals markup divided by 1 plus the markup times 100. To find the markup from the margin, use this formula. Markup equals margin divided by.
And that was the end of the video. It just shows the formula right on the screen. So for the sake of a packaged business, we're going to really just look at margins. So coming back to the business models we discussed earlier, lower margins are going to be products that fall under the impulse category, and higher margins are going to be products that fall into the infrequent category. And when we discuss the relationship between margins and business models for the impulse category, it's okay to have a lower margin because you will be priced competitively enough to see high sales volume. So coming back to that first chat exercise we did, I'd like you all to write in the chat and consider whether you will need a lower, medium, or high margin based on your business model. So that's the impulse, weekly, or infrequent.
Seta, I see you driving and I see you messing with your phone. Please pay attention to the road. We know that you care and you're engaged.
Awesome. So I'm seeing a lot of high and medium margins. Yes, no texting and driving, please, or on the phone. Super dangerous.
All right, so my margin is high and I'll just shut up and put it later when I stop.
All right, drive safely. Cool. So a lot of high and medium margins is what I'm saying. All right, so now that we've discussed our product business models and margins, we'll go into pricing strategies. So like I just mentioned, now we are ready to talk about our pricing strategy, all shaped by what we've discussed so far, which is our product business models and margins. So we'll watch a quick video about back planning your MSRP, and what your MSRP is essentially is your manufacturer suggested retail price. So this essentially is a strategy you will use to figure out how you're going to price your product on the shelf.
Pricing reflects what consumers are willing to pay and your costs, or COGS, to make the product. Your cost of goods are the minimum you need to charge without losing money. Consumers tell you what they are willing to pay by how other items in your category are priced and represent the most you can charge. In today's video, we are going to discuss how to set your pricing using our favorite organizational tool, back planning. We determine price through, you may have guessed this, back planning. The MSRP is our end goal. We know we want to achieve X amount of money on shelves. We now need to understand the intermediary steps to achieve this. To start, let's review the steps of the supply chain for the retail channel. You, the manufacturer, sell your product to a distributor for what is known as the distributor price. Next, the distributor sells your product to the retailer or store. This is the wholesale price. Finally, the retailer sells your product to the end consumer. This is the MSRP, or manufacturer suggested retail price. In summary, there are 3 tiers of pricing as you move across the supply chain. Distributor pricing, the price you sell your product to distributors. Wholesale pricing, the price distributors sell to retailers. And MSRP, the price retailers sell to their consumers. You are most likely already familiar with MSRP, since this is the price you see on shelves every time you grocery shop. The price in each step of the supply chain reflects the cost of goods to sell a product and make a gross profit. Since each operation has different Cogs, the margin also varies. But at the end of the day, manufacturers, you, distributors, and retailers are all for-profit businesses. They need to make enough of a profit where it is worth it for them to run their business. Distributors look for a 25 to 30% margin. They will therefore sell their products to the retailer to achieve this price. Retailers typically want a 40% margin on products they sell. This will differ slightly by product category, channel, and retailer. With these assumed margins for retailers and distributors in place, we are able to backplan our distributor price by determining the MSRP and working backwards. Let's walk through an example of this. You want to sell your pasta for $3.99 on the shelf. Your distributor makes a 20% margin, and your retail partners are looking for a 40% margin. You use the margin versus markup chart to calculate each of the different prices. First, you work backwards to calculate the wholesale price. Again, we are assuming that the retailer is taking a 40% margin. You want to divide your MSRP of $3.99 by your 40% assumed margin of $1.66, and that equals $2.40. This is your wholesale price. Now time to work backwards again to the distributor price. $2.40, your wholesale price, divided by $1.25, your 20% assumed margin, equals $1.92. This is your distributor price, or how much you will sell your product to distributors. Since you will be selling by the case in phase 2, product market fit, your distributor and wholesale prices will usually be shown by the case rather than the unit. If we are going back to our example and assuming a pack size of 6, your wholesale price would be $14.40 a case, and your distributor price would be $11.52. The key takeaways from today's video are: we determine price through backplanning. The MSRP is our end goal. The 3 tiers of pricing along the supply chain are MSRP, wholesale pricing, and distributor pricing. The price in each step of the supply chain reflects the Cogs to sell a product and make a gross profit. Since each operation has different Cogs, the margin also varies.
Awesome. All right, so these are the pricing equations that were listed in the video. So just for simplicity, we've put it in a slide. So that's the distributor pricing with their the margin that they'd like to receive, and then the wholesale pricing as well, with both equations there for ease of use. All right, so the next steps here, and you guys can do this as homework or whenever you're ready to calculate your price, would be to determine your desired MSRP, work backwards to set your wholesale and distributor pricing, and then compare this number against your cost of goods or your variable expenses, And then you'll determine, is your margin enough based on your product business model? And I think we have do we have a question, Tori? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could let that slide with the formula stay up a little bit longer. There was nowhere near enough time to write that down.
Sorry. Yeah. Take your time. Awesome. Perfect. And then I believe you guys will have access to these slides as well, so you can reference back to it whenever. Alrighty.
Price.
And then, like I mentioned earlier, the next steps would be to calculate your price, and these will be the steps to calculate that desired MSRP. So first, it's to determine what you want your price to look like on the shelf. You'll want to work backwards to set your wholesale and distributor pricing using the equations in the previous slide. And then you'll compare this number against your cost of goods or your variable expenses. And then you want to determine and think about, is your margin enough based on your product business model? Really that impulse, weekly, or infrequent. Any questions about calculating that? And I'll also just in a minute go over the pricing workbook.
Is labor included in this?
Yeah, so that'll be in the pricing workbook, and I'll go over that in just a second. I'll show you that Excel sheet. So labor would be included in that. Those are part of your variable expenses. I'll leave this up for just another minute in case anyone wants to write it down. But like I mentioned, I think you guys will have access to these slides. Alrighty. So that's it for the pricing presentation. I'll now take a couple of minutes to share my screen and share the pricing workbook that you guys all have access to. And we'll do like a run through example, and I'll open the floor to any questions on that pricing workbook.
So Salima, just a quick note, the abbreviated one that we have has the one Cogs tab, and that's the one. So, okay, I just want to make sure we are on the same page. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
I'll be sharing. Just give me 1 second. All right, are you guys able to see my screen? Perfect. And this is the pricing workbook that you all have access to. So we'll kind of walk through kind of what each section is, and then I'll walk through an example that I did as well. So towards the left side of this spreadsheet where it says product, you're going to want to enter in your product. Let's say you have a product with different product sizes. You can go ahead and list out those units of measurements out here as well, just to help you with, you know, the different product sizes that you'll be selling. What's nice about this worksheet is that everything that's in blue is essentially what you'll be filling out. And then everything that's kind of in gray is what will be auto-populated, and that'll be the information that you'll be receiving from this calculation. So really the first section of it is your COGS, or your cost of goods, and these will be all of your variable expenses. So some things that we'll think about right off the bat are your labor costs, your ingredient costs, your packaging costs, and your case costs, and then the case pack size, which there's a drop down for this, and we'll go into that in just a second. And then what will be auto-populated is your case box per unit. So it'll tell you, what that cost is per unit, and then also your total cost of goods. So it'll do a calculation of all of your total cost of goods. And then what's nice about this worksheet is it'll auto-calculate your distribution costs and your wholesale costs, both per unit and then per case as well. So it'll be nice to see what that cost would look like. And then your profits per unit and per case. And then really important is what you want to really focus on is your margins. And to have that and maintain that healthy margins, you're going to want to see something between 25 to 30% when you are calculating your MSRP. And the last thing that's in blue that you're going to want to fill in when you're completing this workbook is your MSRP, that manufacturer suggested retail price that you'd like to see your product on the shelf. So the example that we'll walk through today is a cupcake that I'm making. And I'll walk through, the calculation of the labor costs. So what this is, it's all per unit. So for my labor, we recommend, if you don't have a labor cost or you don't know how much to pay yourself or your employees, we recommend just that starting at that minimum wage. Of course, if you have different prices in mind, that's totally up to you and your business. But for the sake of this example, my hourly wage is going to be $15. So we're going to want to multiply our wage by the active labor hours that we're working. So in this example, it took me 2 hours. It took me 2 hours to make a batch of 20 cupcakes. So what I will be doing is I'm multiplying 2 hours, the time it took me, by my wage, $15, and then I'll be dividing it by the number of products I'm making. So in this case, I said I'm making 20 products. That'll bring out my labor cost per unit to $1.50. Is that clear to everyone? And I can reiterate that calculation again. So just to be clear, it's going to be your hours multiplied by your wage divided by the number of products you're making per batch. And then
So that's the individual, the labor cost will be for, like, if it was 6 packages of jerky made in that unit, the labor cost was for what one package would take me to make.
exactly.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And then your ingredient costs, we recommend our accelerator members to use recipial.com. It's a website that calculates your ingredient costs. If you don't want to go that route, all you have to do is add all your ingredient costs by the number of units. And then
What was the website?
it's recipial, and I can drop it in the chat. Give me 1 second. And Katie Ross, I believe you're in this call. If I spelled that wrong, can you just correct me on that? Thanks. But that should be the website. All right, and then moving on to, oh, there we go. Thanks, Katie. Moving on to your packaging costs. So this is based on who your supplier is. Typically it's between 65 to 80 cents. But like I said, you can ask, the packaging supplier, and they'll usually give you that per unit rate for your packaging. And then same with total case costs. This will be the cost of the case that you'll ultimately be sending out to distributors. And this you can also get from the supplier that you're getting your case boxes from. Typically it's around 65 cents. And so the case pack size is The industry standards are either 6 or 12, and that's why the drop down only allows you to pick that 6 or 12. And that's just because that's the industry standards, and that's what distributors take per case box. And then what's auto calculated is the case box per unit and my total cost of goods. So I can see like my total cost of goods for that per unit was around $2.90, right? And then our distributor cost is also auto calculated. You want to make sure that your distributor cost is always more than your total cost of goods to maintain that steady path to profitability, right? So distributor cost needs to be more than your total cost of goods ultimately. And then we have our wholesale price that's auto calculated out here. My MSRP is a little bit high for a cupcake, but this was just for the sake of the example. So my desired MSRP that I would want to see my cupcake on the shelf is around $8.50. And that brings me to a 29% margin. So ultimately I'm in that healthy margin area and on a steady path to profitability. And it's nice because you can see the profit per unit that you'll be getting from each unit of product. Any questions on our pricing workbook? I know I just threw a lot of information at once, but this calculator will be really helpful when you're really taking into account all of your cost of goods and maintaining that healthy margin as you are finalizing your packaging and ingredient costs.
I've got a question on where you come up to the total case cost. Where did that figure come from again?
So your case cost is the cost of the cases that you'll be purchasing. So ultimately you'll be getting that from a packaging supplier.
Oh, so like the actual box.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. In my head, I'm like, how did she get 65 cents if all that is times 6? I got you.
Yeah.
I'm back with the program. Thank you.
If you're buying it like in a lot more volume, like if you buy more, it'll be cheaper, right? That each box will get cheaper and cheaper the more you buy. Awesome. Cool. Well, I really wish you guys the best of luck with filling this out. I know Excel sheets can be very intimidating at first, but really getting that breakdown and that structure will really help you understand it. I know when I first saw this, I was a little bit overwhelmed, but knowing that you only have to fill out the blue sections makes it a lot easier, right? Because everything else is pretty much auto-populated. Pat, I think you have a question.
Yeah, I don't know if it really applies. Probably just my ignorance, honestly. My variable costs are extremely variable because I use my chicken eggs and the raw material, obviously, to go into my chicken and egg white meringues. And I don't know exactly how to figure out. I guess it's going to have to look it over in an entire year because I can't really force the chickens to give me eggs at a specific time. As far as how can I determine the cost of a chicken egg or my chicken eggs? I know it's a feed, and I guess I'll have to figure in the calculation of the labor of taking care of the chickens and how many eggs I'm getting per chicken. And
yeah, go ahead.
Salima, I want to pop in just for a second. So Pat, this is exactly why we got Kevin, who did the cost, the knowing your cost section to set up those one-on-ones. He'll help you figure out the exact cost of goods sold and help you look at like what it costs to produce it on your farm versus if you have to buy it, you know, if your supply is low. So I would totally, I'm sure Salima has some great things to say, but that is exactly what Kevin is there for with those one-on-ones. So
to go into the pricing calculator. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks, Katie. Any other questions about the pricing workbook?
Not about the pricing workbook, but I will echo what girlfriend just said. That cost and during my tonic, it was great when I had my coconuts. When I started running out of the coconuts, I had to go buy coconut water. I had to recalculate my cost as to how much it was going to do. So grateful for knowing that I need to call Kevin too to get that cost breakdown for what happens after you have to change from what you can supply yourself to what you have to now go buy and purchase.
Yeah, so only 2 of you have booked those one-on-ones. I just want to provide a little bit of accountability here. He's willing to do it in the summer and extend it because he knows everyone's overwhelmed. But please, please, please use him. He's amazing. Like, he figures out if your goat needs a goat friend to produce more milk, how you factor in the cost of the goat friend. I mean, like, really
What?
specific
Sorry.
farm things that I know
Sorry.
nothing about. I don't know, but he helps work with the farmers to get those really specific details in there. So please use him.
Awesome. Well, that ends my session on pricing. I hope that was helpful to you all in your pricing strategy going forward. Again, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask, but Katie, I'll give it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Salima. So I just kind of want to use the rest of this time to go through, we'll do a little preview of what's coming next week, which is that there's amazing videos from Union Kitchen to watch, and they show you what to do with pitching and what not to do. You definitely want to look at that. The article has completely different information, but it's also really valuable. It talks about Range Me and other online places where you can connect with buyers. Please look at all the materials. I know that a lot of it is too far ahead for most of you. That's okay, but just get a frame of reference so that when you want to know something later on, you know where to find it and that it's there for you. Tori, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. I don't know if I was not paying attention well at some point, so this might be kind of a stupid question, but I'm not entirely sure what we bring to Kevin if we have the appointment with him. And maybe I'm having this question because I think we're at a really early stage of development. And so, like, for instance, this week, we were really not able to actually do the worksheet. Like, I mean, we could do it hypothetically, but we don't have actual numbers at this stage. So I'm not really sure I know how to prepare for that.
Yeah, so I would just say going through and thinking about just thinking through the process of what it takes to make your product. How much time do you spend on it? Know the answer to that. Are you using someone else to do it, or are you using your own time? How much do you value your time? If you were to get sick, would you be able to find someone else to cover that? What would that cost? What are the exact ingredients that are going in? What does that look like? And, taking whatever, like if you're buying certain things at the grocery store, how much you're using for one unit, and figuring out the price of what you're using per unit. So, and do that for all your ingredients. And then for your farm ingredients that you've grown, what is the farming process behind growing that ingredient? So if you're buying fertilizer, how much, or chicken feed, how much chicken feed or fertilizer do you think goes into one unit of your product? I'm going to tell you that you could go absolutely crazy trying to figure this out exactly. There is a balance in all of this. Please do not go crazy. Please do not get down to that. We're trying right now to come up with a good number. And, there's time, if you scale up, yes, you will have to get really, nitpicky with your costs. But for now, have a good idea of a pretty solid number, a ballpark number that you can do. So before you meet with Kevin, just think about that. And then he'll start to ask you those questions. Well, do you have any equipment that you buy? What do you, how much does it cost to have a chicken coop? How long does your chicken coop last? Things like that. So really think into your farming practices. So he will go over all of that with you. And so that's what I would say to prepare for Kevin, is just think and write down things as much as you can. And then he'll help you put it into a budget template.
Yeah, I just realized I needed to get an oven thermometer. My oven says it's at a specific degrees, but then I'm making bigger batches of meringues now, and they're coming out different. They're not coming out all the same color. The bottom oven was coming out different color. And I'm like, okay, you're burning a little hotter, even though I'm taking them out, being all Martha Stewart on his butt and taking them out and switching them around and stuff. And
Yep. So
You're gonna
think
need a
through.
convection oven. You're gonna need a convection oven that circulates the heat.
yeah, I got to
of the
get a new
machine.
oven.
Well, you can go to Web Restaurant Store online. I don't know what your budget is, but they have commercial convection ovens for all budgets. And
Yeah.
I got a small tabletop one to bake in for my restaurant because we were running into that same problem, when we were doing biscuits. The air in the convection oven circulates, and so it keeps the temperature more even.
That would save a lot with my time because I'm constantly going in and checking. And actually, I've got one of those little Emerald stovetop, their desk, not a stovetop, what do you call them? One of his little air fryers that does 12 different things. And when I cooked, I had overflow, so I did it I put a couple of them in there. And my husband says, oh, these turned out much better in his, and that's the convection. So exactly what you were saying, Pam.
So yeah, so think through those capital outlays. Also think through, some of you have learned things like that, if you have a canned product like a salsa or something that's acidified, that you will probably need to have an at-home pH meter. And so add that into the cost, like really think through your cleaning and sanitation. What kind of supplies do you need? Like there's a lot. And like I said, you could go down the rabbit hole. Please do not disappear down the rabbit hole. I beg you, just do this in like a nice way. I want to thank Salima and also Katie and the Union Kitchen team for all that you've done. This is our last week with them, and they have been awesome in providing support. So just thank you so much, Salima, for going through all that with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you one question? Real
Yes.
quick?
Uh-huh.
What was the preferred margin
It's
that we're shooting for?
25 to 30. I would
Okay,
for impulse 23%, but no less than 20.
no less than 20%.
Yes, you want to aim for no less than 20%.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Right. And Salima, and Katie, if you guys want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. If you want to hop off, you're also welcome to do that. It's whatever. I'm just gonna, for the rest of the time, I was just hoping to sort of hear where everyone's at with their product development, and just kind of go around the room and hear that. So
Cool. I'll stick around for a bit and I might hop off a little early.
okay.
I did want to ask, you do think that sweet meringues are probably more of an impulse buy. It's not something I would think that some people might buy them weekly.
I would buy them all the time. Every single time I go to the grocery store, every time.
I think it would be nice to kind of see what your core consumer is looking for. So is this something that they're picking up every day, or like something that they're eating in one sitting, picking up every day? So like think of like the examples I provided, like the bag of chips, the pack of M&Ms, or is it something that they're kind of picking up like on an as needed basis, or if they want to just splurge on something, that would be like an infrequent, or is it something that's going on their grocery list and they're picking up on a weekly basis, right?
Right.
Thinking about what the habits of your core consumer and when they're consuming this product and how often.
Right. Just thinking about who I've given them to, and then just thinking about my own household. My, unfortunately, husband eats them when I make them, they disappear essentially. Me, it would be just a one and done, something that you would just have after a cup of coffee, or, my son likes it after, to accompany a cup of coffee, like he called and requested like a pistachio meringue because he had a pistachio coffee, but he's on the other side of Florida. He's like, I want a pistachio meringue, that kind of thing. So yeah, you're right. I need to figure out who's what. Another person, the nurses say they want them daily, but that's just being nice. So I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think those surveys would be really helpful, those consumer surveys, just really seeing what your consumer is looking for and what they want.
Yeah, the survey, the market survey that Union Kitchen made for our activity for, I think, core customers, is it?
I think
Either core customers or customer pain point. It's in the beginning. So that is awesome. And it talks about frequency. So that's something that you might want to reference what you got for feedback there in terms of the frequency that people said that they had bought similar products at, because it's important to look at past buying behavior, correct, Salima? Rather than what they say in the beautiful ideal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And off topic really quick, the yellow dragon fruit seedlings, I'm going to be potting them separately. And so they're ready to send out. So just direct message me if anybody wants one or two, so I can send them the yellow dragon fruit seedlings. Just direct message me. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. Okay. So Pamela, where are you at with your product development? And like I said earlier, we know we've thrown a tremendous amount at you guys. So we just are curious how everyone's doing and how we can best support you.
Well, I have been making this recipe for a long time and feeding it to customers at my restaurant that we had prior to the pandemic. So I have a pretty good handle on the type of customer and the pain point and all of that. Where I'm at right now is I need to kind of like Pat, I started going down the rabbit hole of, well, when I grow my own chickens, how much does it cost? And if I grow this herb or whatever, because I could go either way. I could go buy chicken wholesale somewhere, but then that kind of takes away from what I'm trying to promote, which is pastured poultry, farm raised. I have a friend that does pastured poultry. It's way too expensive. He goes from his farm to the farmer's market and sells directly to the public, and it's outrageously expensive. So there's no way that I could buy chickens from him. He's got his niche market, and you know what I'm saying? So I guess for me, the big thing is how much chicken soup do I want to make, and where am I going to sell it? I can sell it out of my own farmer's market and cut out the distribution or distributor and the wholesale person. I just don't really know right now how big I want to go with this. I would like to go big with it, but with big projects comes a lot of big problems, big responsibility. So it's that whole thing about scale, because mine is chicken soup, so it has to be canned. I have a commercial kitchen that we're finishing up, but it's, I don't have a cannery at my house. So I really needed to look into maybe having someone else produce it. But I think it was you, Sarita, that said you looked into that and it was really expensive.
It was not me. It was not me. But however, I have a question. Are you going to start out with small batch?
Well, small batch I can do right now, from home. But if I go into something big where I'm using distributors and whatnot, then it would have to be done on a massive scale. Mm-hmm. So, that's probably, I'm kind of thinking these are questions that we all probably have, is like, how big do you go with this, and how do you get from where we are now at home to, producing on a large scale?
Yeah. So where I'm going with my question is, are you ready for a larger scale, or do you want to just focus on your small batch numbers? and just work with that for now.
Right, for now, I can't go really big. Like I can't run a cannery out of my kitchen, if that makes sense.
So,
So,
I wanted to just point out that, yeah, we talk about scaling throughout this program, and turning your recipe into a formula and what you need, and we try to kind of de-risk the process to some degree. This pricing week actually does address the path to profitability, and the workbook, the second section of the workbook, is really great because it lets you put in your like, if you buy it bulk for your cost of goods sold, what those bulk prices would then mean for your profit margin. So I would suggest filling out this entire thing and the entire workbook. And I think that will give you an idea too about scaling. It'll inform you a little bit more about some of those decisions. But it's a neat part of that workbook. So. And I don't think anyone knows for sure, if they're ready to go big until, I mean, it's a big choice, right? And even sometimes it just, it happens, and then they're like, oh my God, what happened to me? But there's a lot of choices, and we respect you wherever you decide to fall out. If you decide just to stay small, we also really want to respect and support you if you decide to go big, and give you the tools to do that. So I just want to mention that everyone is legitimate, no matter where they fall on that spectrum with wanting to scale or not. So
I appreciate that. The other thing that's going on right now is that it's so expensive to feed chickens on my property on a small scale because of the inflation. The feed that I use has gone up almost 100% in the last 6 months. It's crazy. It's gotten so crazy that I question, when you go to a chicken farm, you have people that are producing thousands of chickens at a time, on a timeline, and that's what we buy commercially from the grocery store. So they're buying everything. They're bringing their feed in by the ton in big delivery trucks, whereas I'm buying feed by the bag, and it's outrageously expensive. And I don't have the equipment to bring feed in and put it in silos and whatnot. I don't have that on my farm. So I've got a lot to think about. I really want to do this. I know I'm going to do it. I'm just working on right now, wrapping my head around scale, cost versus, what can I produce versus what do I need to go buy outside sourcing of my ingredients and stuff. So.
Yeah, I know supply chain issues and all sorts of things have skyrocketed a lot of prices that are important to your production, just even on a basic farming level. So,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that and wish you good luck with it. I mean, I wish I could make the prices go down for you.
Yeah.
Tori and Linka, would you mind sharing how you're doing with your product and where you're at?
Yeah, a lot of what Pamela said resonates for us too. I mean, chickens have nothing to do with our hot sauce, but we do raise chickens. And at one point, and we don't raise them for meat other than the culls who we put into soup, but we do raise them for eggs. And we did the math at one point to figure out how many chickens we'd have to be raising to really reach a cost-effective ratio in terms of what it costs to bring in feed and what we'd have to sell the eggs for. And we very quickly discovered that we do not want to own that many chickens. Right? Like it was just, the people who are cost effectively selling eggs, it wasn't what we wanted to do. So when we look at the hot sauce, I mean, I think we are finding that we pretty much want to stay small. Although whenever my husband pops his head in on these conversations, he says, no, we want to be Goya, right? You know, the people who run Goya, some of the in the upper levels were friends with my husband's family. So, and I said, no, you know, I think we're going bespoke, right? Linka and I had a funny conversation about, well, what would it be like if, because I teach ceramics at the university, right? That's like what I do when I'm not coming up with farm products. And we talked about how it would be really great to like hand make, you know, one of a kind jars that the product would go in. And then it would be truly seasonal, which would keep in line with just how many crops of various product, you know, the various ingredients we actually grow. So I'm saying that kind of as a farce, right? Because that's not really what we're doing here for this incubator. But in a lot of ways, I think we're figuring out how much, what would happen if we were really growing everything that were the ingredients for our product? What would that mean? And what kind of constraints would that put on how much product we could really produce? And then would it be financially viable to do this? And then what would be the sort of paradigm shift that would be necessary to go from having a product as available as it could be based on what we grow versus what would have to shift if we were going to make more product? And it's, I mean, it's a tricky thing. And I think that theoretically or hypothetically, maybe is the better word, is it's something we can think about hypothetically, but as soon as I start to put numbers on it or try to put numbers on it is when it really gets difficult. And I think that's why I had the question about how to prepare for Kevin, because sometimes it feels like we're doing the math in a fantasy world rather than in the real world. So I think that's where we are. I don't know if that really answers the question, but I guess the other thing too that I'm really interested in is we have friends who run a kombucha company that they literally, I mean, they've struggled during COVID because of people not, you know, going out and going to restaurants and going to farmers markets and things, but they do work somewhat seasonally, right? Like they always make kombucha, but the flavors that they make are really driven by the seasons, where if we have a really good mango season, they have more mango based flavors because they're sourcing all their flavoring ingredients locally. Or if we have a season where, you know, we don't have lychees, well, then there's not lychee kombucha that season because it just didn't happen. And I think that there's some part of the local season and how my farm participates in the local season that I'm feeling like maybe I have a sort of commitment to that. And I also think about the fact that there are some people in our community who right now are looking at what's happening in the world, and does that influence this? And it influences the supply chains, right? Like why chicken feed and all feed is out of sight, fertilizer is going to be out of sight. And you know, I feel like maybe there should be a incubator of this sort that looks at how do we build local and regional supply chains for the things that we need to keep everybody going, and what would that do to the sorts of products that we promote. So I think we're definitely not thinking big. I think if we were going to go out on a limb somewhere, we'd be looking at how to make local, regional, small scale, more profitable, rather than how to be Goya. All right, that's my manifesto.
That was a great update. I think that it's a very neat idea to consider doing an incubator like this, but for looking at supplying local things, I've actually been thinking of something along those lines that I think would be very, very cool. I also would say I love the seasons too, and feel a dedication to like incorporating them in my just regular life. I don't farm, but I would say that in terms of scaling and like the seasonality, I don't know that they're like mutually exclusive. I think that there might be some ways in which you could do both. I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's overlap too. I just haven't totally figured it out, especially as regards how to put dollar amounts on it. And I think it's complicated by the fact that we homestead. And so there's so much stuff that we just do because it feeds us and we don't really account for that, right? So anyway, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to meet with Kevin. So Seta, I see your hand is up. You want to go next?
Yes. And I'm answering the questions of finding the numbers. I'm very grateful for the Excel sheets because they really do. And I'm grateful the formulas are already there. So it's almost kind of a plug and play when you decide a price point. So it makes it very simple to do that. So I'm very grateful for that. I, like the others, have found this challenge of when I'm out of my farm produce, how do I do the next thing of incorporating either purchase or other? And I will echo what my lady was just trying to say, in that the greatest gift I've been given is the ability to coordinate with my local farmers regionally and locally. We got to reach out to our neighbor farmers, because over and over again, everybody's looking for the same thing, additional support to do what they're doing. So the more we reach out in our little areas, I got a bunch here in Leon County, I got a bunch in my little North Florida area that I'm working with, that I can get a supply of things. And also to that season change, I think it's very important that we adapt with the seasons, because with the seasons also come a level of nutrition that we're trying to provide for our people. So make sure you are incorporating in the summertime mangoes and pineapples, and in the wintertime, kales and apples and citrus, so that you go along with what needs to be done for the overall health of the people. And I know with my girl who's doing the eggs are seasonal, whether people realize it or not. So knowing how you're going to have that supply when the chickens aren't laying is another thing to consider, or how we preserve those things going forward. So that, yes, what we can supply our own business is one thing, but thinking bigger to what, how we coordinate with other farmers to get what we need in produce, or whatever it is that we're doing, that we work with our areas to do that. I think that's going to be a great gift that we really will benefit from later if we start working on it now. And that's all I have to say.
That was all great, Seta. I also want to hear how your tonic's going.
All right, so I tested my tonic last week with the family because it was spring break. And I had mommy, her 18-year-old, her 16-year-old, her 12-year-old nephew, and her 8-year-old niece. I have it all on video that as I can figure out how to get it to you guys, I'll do that. I have one guy that's calling me every 5 minutes. I can't make enough of it for him. He's making me nervous and sharing it too many with people that he won. There's two things I've done with the tonic. The tonic has went from just a little 2-ounce tonic that they will all approve of if they had to take it in 2-ounce shots, to the a drink that I make out of it too, that I can't keep in supply. So I'll share those videos with you all so you can see how the family responded. It was really good. I got good feedback. I got different feedback from different palates. There are people who are vegetarian, there are people who are meat eaters, so they could tell the difference. They either liked or didn't like it accordingly. And then I could tell for those who were on that vegetarian vegan side, they almost instantly felt the results of drinking the drink. So those type of things, and the feedback was really, really nice coming back and testing it. With the different types of coconut water, because I ran out of my coconut supply, I had to go buy coconut water, and whether that was different. The lime juice, whether I was using the lime itself or whether I was using a concentrated lime juice in the drink, whether that made an impact too. So I've tested all of those pieces, and I just have to document and put it in writing and get it to you guys. But yeah, it's been very interesting, the testing of the tonics and juice.
That's awesome, Seta. I'm so happy to hear all that. That's really cool. I can't wait to see the video. Sarita, I would love to hear from you if you wouldn't mind sharing. I know you've been busy lately.
Yeah, I've been busy. So because of life's current circumstances, we have had to bring ourselves back to reality as far as what we want to do with this product. And so there was a time when we thought that we wanted our line to be, you know, this whole idea of including all of these ingredients that we grew ourselves. Well, that's not reality for us anymore. However, we're not going to go seasonal. We're going to go year round with our flavors. We're going to keep our relationships with our current suppliers that are not local or anything that we don't grow ourselves. So we're going to keep those relationships. And I don't think, or I don't know if you remember, there was a time where I was kind of skeptical about us creeping up on our prices and our margins. So we did that within the last 2 weeks, and nothing has changed with our demand. As a matter of fact, this past week, we had a slew of local deliveries, which was really great. And I'm saying we, but of course not me. The other thing that we looked at is, you know, if we do a lot of in-house stuff, do we really want to bring on more manpower than we currently have? So we have farm hands, and we also have other employees that work with our companies, and we do not want to bring on more manpower. So we're going to stay with the small batch idea for now. We did have a meeting with a distributor out of North Carolina, but she mainly deals with alcoholic beverages. And so she just didn't really fit our grand scheme of things. So again, it just really made us want to stay small batch. So that's where we are. We have a meeting scheduled with, I think her name is Kristen, on Monday. And we're going to do some more like revisiting our entire marketing plan, because I'm nervous about really going large scale with marketing, because we did that when we had the restaurant and we just weren't ready for the success or lack thereof for what marketing did for that. So I'm nervous about meeting with Kristen because I want to go bigger, but I don't want to go too big with marketing.
Tell her that, Sarita. She knows that everyone has a different circumstance, that a lot of people have, you know, another job or a variety of things. So she doesn't want to get you overcommitted beyond what you were capable of. She wants like a steady, she wants growth that makes sense for you. So just communicate with her, and I think that's she can come up, because she makes a great plan, and I think she can do that she can incorporate that into your plan. So
okay, so that's where we are for now. So we have some pros and cons that we have to kind of figure out moving forward, but I think that we're in a good place. We found a good middle ground. We just kind of got to work with it or make it work for us and our life circumstances right now.
Sarita, I am so happy to hear about your prices going up and that was not an issue. That's awesome. Cherokee, I saw your hand go up and then you put it back down. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but I could hear some of that like trepidation with Sarita. But when I met with Kristen, like she just right off the bat had some like really great free ideas. And I'm like, that's just great. Like when people actually think about that kind of stuff all the time. So I think you'll find, you know, some comfort with all of that. So.
Okay, good.
Cherokee, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'll just say that I think that this has been a very interesting process, and even looking at the evolution, I was having some of those similar pain points that some of the other ladies were talking about in terms of cost. And I think for me, I emailed you, I almost puked the other day when I took a sample of one of the batches. I was like, oh my God, like it was not diluted and it was just really way too much. And I was like, things are not going well. Because I was looking at things like the weight and wanting to be sustainable, but and trying to use glass. I don't know enough people who would spend that much on these kind of luxury items. I'm not saying that there aren't and that someone really clever wouldn't be able to sell to that market. But I think, I don't remember the gentleman's name from last week, but he had some really good ideas, the one who had the company with the food in Ocala. And I think that, you know, I was thinking about Alice with her freeze dry machine. And I was like, I honestly feel like if you did make it into a powder, it would help with things like the shelf life and the weight, you know, for distribution and so forth. But then that kind of like changes things. And then rather than a 2-ounce drink, it would probably be in a water bottle kind of thing. And then at what point is it not a consumable product? And is it a supplement? So I had all these different questions. And I just, like a few of you also had mentioned about for the supply, you know, I didn't have these things already powdered up, and there are different processes with that as well. But I just got the ingredients organically just in the powder, and then like started making batches from that. So then my weights and everything, it just wasn't, I'd never done it like that before. So I think it is doable. And I don't know if people would want to buy something like that, but I feel like I'm going to try to just tweak it and keep tweaking it on kind of like a daily basis, just when I go to take it or something, to see if it would be something that I would do every day, because I would want it to be something to be like in a pattern. And certain ingredients that were more like esoteric or fringe, like certain berries or something, then yeah, just looking at that cost. But I would like to be able to look at having items grown from within, because I think that would be the most cost effective. And I think using a product like wheatgrass, it has a fast yield, like harvest period. And if you could keep something like that as your base, and then keep the more expensive, if you will, ingredients to like specific blends or something like that. But I think it's totally doable. And I really was getting interested into more of like the microgreens too, for even people in more urban areas, because you can grow vertical, you can grow hydroponically. There's just, and like you mentioned with that, you know, like with tech, I hope people really do start incorporating that, because I feel like there's a lot of automation that could probably help at scale with that. So I think that for some of you guys thinking about like, well, you know, how am I going to handle this if it does blow up or go large? I think that there are probably people who could help with that, to help bring in some automation too, if you really, you know, just looked at the little individual components. I don't know.
Yeah, there was a lot in there to respond to. So I think I might actually end up not responding to most of it, even though there's a lot of great thoughts. I do, I think it would be really good. Sean from last week shared his information, his contact information, and I sent that out in the email, like a follow-up email, because I forgot it in the first one. But I would reach out to him and see what he thinks and talk about some of the stuff with him. And some of the people that he's worked with at the Innovation Hub, and like some of the startups that he's worked with, I think that some of the things that they know and that they've gone through would be really good for you to hear. And so I don't know if you'd be willing to maybe connect you with some people or whatnot, but I would just suggest reaching out to him and just kind of talking through some of this stuff with him. I think he would appreciate that too. So, All right, so we have time for probably one more person, and then whoever didn't go this week is I'm gonna save time for them next week. Next week is gonna be a little more laid back, and we just want to have fun with you and celebrate that you've made it through the coursework. And just really just enjoy each other. So I think Wanda has some neat exercises for you guys to do that she's done with other entrepreneurs in the past, but for the most part, it's going to be a pretty community-based, just relaxed time to be together. So the last person for today is Jocelyn. I would like to hear how your jerky's going and how, I know you've been doing like some stuff with like the IP, which I think would be neat to maybe share with some people.
What?
Like the naming and all.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Jerky is like, because I came into this probably not as prepared as some other ones. Like I'm not very far along in this jerky. Like I'm not selling the actual beef to the public yet. So that's like a humongous, kind of setback in this. But the jerky is like, the idea has developed and it actually seems plausible. So I'm just still working on, like I did the gluten-free in the recipe. Like I tried the tamari soy sauce and mixed it in with the recipe. So, I mean, I have something pretty consistent there. The pricing is what's really getting me. And that is why I have to sit down with Kevin, because on the scale that we're operating, like the price I have to sell this for to turn a profit is like, whoa. So I too am thinking small batch, something I can have a little more control over. And I was actually I will be hitting you up, Pam. I have a question for you separately from this. But on the front of the beef as a whole, we actually registered the business this week. So we have settled on a name for our company, which is Tilly Hawk Ranch. And I had my both meetings with the marketing team to start kind of getting that going in an official direction. So that's pretty gosh darn exciting. Like, we had meetings yesterday, like we're having, deadlines, and it's exciting. Like beef will be here in June. So we're like tickled to death that that's going to be official. And then the rest of it is it is growing. And beef jerky to me is like a backup plan. If it makes, not a backup plan, but like the thing I want to develop in case we ever run into a situation for that resiliency. What if something else happens again and I don't have something to do with all of this beef? Well, at least I have something to turn it into, so I need to develop this. It's like a necessity to build that into my plan for our future, to be able to be resilient and here for the long haul.
Yep, and that is the point of this grant, is to teach you guys, that value-added production can make you more resilient to market shocks. So if you have a bunch of product, and God forbid something happens, like, and you can't, you can't grow what you were growing or whatever, but you have shelf-stable product that you already have lined up. It really is a backup plan, and allows for that like consistent sales throughout that time.
Yeah,
so I see this.
So,
I see Seta has to go, and we're getting close to the end. So I'm just gonna. Did you have anything to say, Seta? Or that was an old hand up, right?
No, I'm good. There's still so much work I want to do in this class at the time. I just got to catch up with myself and what needs to be done. But boy, do I appreciate all of it, because it really does. It ties into my other piece of business. So all of these pieces are really congruent. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I just need to buckle down and spend blocking hours to spend doing the work, because this stuff is very important. I appreciate it. That's all.
Well, Seta, you did join late, and I told everyone that this is normally a 15-week course that we've shoved into 12 weeks as a test, and I think it's a little too rapid fire. And so feel free to put that in the exit surveys, everybody. it feels a little too rapid fire for me, and I'm not having to do all the work that you are. So feel free to like ignore the deadlines on assignments at this point and just keep chipping away, keep making progress. But I would say start with the marketing people as soon as possible. And that goes for everybody. So with
Thank you.
that, yes, of course. So with that, unless anyone has any questions, yeah, Debbie.
I have one. The flow worksheet. I couldn't find how to do that.
So I just make mine in PowerPoint. You can make like little text boxes and then draw them together. Like,
Where can I find those instructions? Because I guess I go from the point of buying the materials and all the way down to the part of selling it.
so there's a cookie process that we have an example of, the process flow chart.
Right.
And
Okay,
so,
and that turned into a flow chart. I guess I missed it somehow.
so in the module, yeah, there is a flow chart, which is like the boxes, and it shows you how it, the different steps along the way. So I would look back at that at the module, download that example, and do something similar. And I use, like I said, PowerPoint to do flowcharts. You can also use Word and the text boxes. Don't spend money on a fancy software, please. You can probably do it very easily, and it might, be a little more tedious, but you can do it with those text boxes. So.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I'd probably just do it longhand first. It seems to imprint
Yeah.
like
You
that.
can draw it on paper.
Exactly. That's how I'll do it.
Yeah.
For flowcharts too, one of the things that I like to do is get sticky notes, like a bunch of Post-its, and put the different steps on that, so that if I forgot something, I can just kind of stick them to a new place and move them around a little bit. So that might be nice, just as a quick tip.
And you keep talking about shelf life, but what if our stuff is, what if it needs to be under refrigeration? It's still shelf life, right?
This stuff has a shelf life.
Okay.
Even if it's a shorter shelf life. Yeah, Pat.
I'm sorry. I know it sounded really random that I talked about hemp crackle candy, like when Cherokee was talking, but it wasn't so completely random. My mind does bounce around a lot, but she was talking about how she wants to dehydrate, and then, whether or not it was going to be a supplement. And then I was thinking about how you can take isomalt little spheres, and how you can put powder into isomalt. You can take isomalt and you make little isomalts, spheres, and then you can take those and you can pop them into water, and you can have little teas or lemonades, and you can sell the isomalt spheres with the powdered stuff. And so you can sell a little container of isomalt spheres. They could take it out and pop it in and drink it.
That is fun. That's like a bath fizz for tea.
It's a bath fizz, but it's drinkable.
That's so cool. Thank you.
And that kind of gets it away from the kind of the mentality of powdered drinks. I think it makes it a little something more novel and fun. I love that idea. So anyway.
Yeah,
I do it at home, but you can obviously do that and market it, and then they can have a little container. Obviously, it's not an impulse buy. When they're doing it, they buy it weekly, or more of a, I want to have this at home, and then I don't know. You don't need to make it fizzy.
I know we're after time here, but Pat, since you are a doctor, I know, since you had such a great idea, my sister, she works at the hospital, and that's kind of the reason why I started making the wheatgrass shots for her originally. But she said, guess because Gainesville's kind of like, a college kind of town. She's like, I feel like a local market would be something that incorporates something that people could use as mixers for beverage, like cocktails, but also had ingredients that helped with hangovers. And so I'm like, I don't have any clue what that would be. I would require research and stuff, but
Pickle juice.
Pickle juice. Basically hydration with electrolyte replacement. Vasalgia. The old time term that we used to use for hangovers, Vasalgia. This,
Nostalgia.
yeah, it's basically you let yourself get way too dehydrated and your body is screaming in pain. Your brain is, the majority is water. What?
Drink pickle juice for a hangover.
Pickle juice.
Yep.
You know, I do think Cherokee, it would be cool if I can see like a whole line of these little like balls and you can add them to different kinds of drinks and like you can, I don't know. I'm loving this idea.
I'm
You
sorry, Doc, you
Yeah,
can,
very cool.
you can put down Dr. Conceived, you know.
All right, everybody.
I'll see if I can try and find, I mean, I remember seeing someone actually showing you how to make the isomalt balls to make her little lemonade drinks, and you can make it into hot beverages or cool beverages. I can't remember where I saw that. It was a long time ago, but anyway, that brought me to the hemp crackle candy, which by the way can't be a cottage industry, but apparently because it's got hemp in it, hemp seeds. So
Pat
that's
with
all.
the random facts. I love it.
What?
Okay. I
Bye.
said, all right, everybody. Well, I am very hungry, so I'm leaving you all to get dinner, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I look forward to just spending time with you next week and enjoying being in community and hearing the rest of the people who didn't get a chance to go today, how your products are doing. So with that, I am signing off. If you need anything at all during the week, please just reach out through email or call.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Katie.
Bye, everybody.